Rachel Johnson sat in the lobby of a high-end hotel in Lagos, fidgeting with a strap of her handbag. The air around her buzzed with wealth and luxury. She had never been in a place like this before. Her fingers tightened around her phone. A message from her best friend, Jane, flashing on the screen. "Are you sure about this?" She sighed. Jane had been skeptical ever since Rachel told her about the strange offer she had received. It had come out from nowhere. A meeting request from one of the most Lagos powerful businessmen, Desmond Princewill. Rachel had no idea why a man like him wanted to see her, but the promise of a life-changing proposal had been enough to get her to this meeting. A man in a dark suit approached her. "Miss Johnson?" Rachel nodded, and the man gestured for her to follow him. They entered a private conference room where Desmond Princewill sat behind a polished wooden desk. He was an imposing figure, tall with a commanding presence. Everything about him screamed wealth and power. "Miss Johnson," he began, standing to shake her hand. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Princewill," Rachel said, feeling out of space. He motioned for her to sit. "I will get straight to the point. I need a wife." Rachel blinked. "Excuse me?" Desmond's face remained calm. "It's not what you think. I don't need a real wife. I need someone to play the role of my wife for a year, in exchange for a substantial amount of money." Rachel's heart raced. This was insane. "Why me?" she asked, her voice shaky. Desmond leaned forward. "You are perfect for what I need. You are smart, discreet, and unknown enough to avoid unnecessary attention." "I have done my homework." Rachel's mind spun. This was the last thing she expected. "What's the catch?" Desmond smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The catch, Miss Johnson, is that you have to play your part perfectly. No one can know the truth." Rachel couldn't sleep that night. Desmond Princewill had offered her 20 million naira, money she could only dream of, one for 1 year of pretending to be his wife. He needed someone to help him secure a major business deal, a deal that hinged on him appearing as a stable family man. But what kind of man needed to pay someone to be his wife? It was too strange, too risky. Yet the money would solve all her problems. Her mother's hospital bills, her younger brother's school fees. It was enough to change their lives. The next morning, she called Jane. "I am thinking about doing this." Jane's voice was sharp. "Rachel, are you crazy? This sounds like trouble. You don't know anything about this man." Rachel sighed, knowing Jane had a point, but desperation was a powerful motivator. "I've done some research on him. He is legit. If this is real, I can get my family out of the hole we are in. Or you could be getting into something far worse," Jane countered. "What if he is dangerous?" Rachel bit her lip. "I don't think he is. He seemed serious, but not like he was trying to hurt me." "I don't know, Jane, but the money is real, and I can't ignore that." The next day, Rachel returned to Desmond's office. This time, she felt more prepared. She had questions. "I need to understand exactly what you're asking me to do," Rachel said as soon as she sat down. Desmond nodded. "I appreciate your caution. Here is the deal. For 1 year, you will live with me, attend public events as my wife, and act the part. We will have separate rooms, and there will be no intimacy involved unless it's for appearances. You will be compensated 20 million naira plus any additional expenses that come up during the year. Rachel frowned. And what happens after the year is over? Desmond leaned back in his seat. After the year, we quietly divorce and you go back to your life. No one will ever know the truth. Rachel insisted. And what about my family? They will ask questions. I've already considered that. You will have a cover story, a whirlwind romance, a private wedding. They won't be able to contact you directly during the year, but you'll be able to visit them occasionally with my approval. Rachel's mind swelled with thoughts. The morning was life-changing, but it felt like she was signing away her freedom. Still, what choice did she have? I will need a contract, Rachel said firmly. Desmond smiled, pulling out a document already prepared. Rachel stared at the paper in front of her. This was it. One signature, and her life would change forever. Rachel packed her bags, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. The contract had been signed, and the arrangements were in place. Desmond sent a car to pick her up, and soon she would be moving into his mansion. As the driver pulled up to the estate, Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The house was massive, with high gates and pristine gardens. It looked like something out of a magazine. The driver opened the door for her, and Rachel stepped out, trying to steady her nerves. She had never been around this kind of wealth before. Desmond greeted her at the door, his expression unreadable. "Welcome home, Mrs. Princewill." Rachel forced a smile. "Thank you." Inside, the house was even more impressive. Every room was elegantly furnished, with expensive art and decor that made Rachel feel even more out of place. Desmond showed her to her room. "You will have your own space here. If you need anything, just ask the staff." Rachel nodded, trying to take it all in. This was her new life, at least for the next 1 year. While the luxury was overwhelming, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into a world where nothing was as it seemed. The first few days in the mansion were quiet. Rachel mostly kept to herself, getting used to the new surroundings and learning the routine. Desmond was often away to work, leaving her alone with the staff. It was strange, living in such a grand house, but feeling completely isolated. One evening, Desmond came home and informed her that they would be attending their first public event together, a charity gala. "It's important that we make a good impression," he told her. Rachel spent hours preparing, unsure of what to expect. When she finally stepped out in the gown Desmond had arranged for her, his eyes flickered over her briefly. Then he gave a small nod of approval. At the gala, Rachel felt like a fish out of water. Desmond introduced her to his business associates, and she quickly realized that her role wasn't just about standing by his side. She had to charm them, engage in polite conversation, and present herself as a perfect wife. It was exhausting, but she managed to get through the night without any mistakes. When they got back to the mansion, Rachel collapsed onto her bed. This was only the beginning, and she already felt the weight of the lie pressing down on her. A week after the gala, Rachel started noticing strange things. Desmond was secretive about his work, always locking himself in his study for hours. He rarely spoke to her unless they were preparing for an event, and even then, he kept his answers brief. One evening, as she was walking past his study, She overheard a conversation. Desmond's voice was low but tense. "I told you, everything is under control. Just stick to the plan." Rachel froze. What was he talking about? Who was he talking to? What plan? She quickly moved away from the door before she could be caught. But the conversation left her uneasy. What exactly had she gotten herself into? Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jane. "How is married life?" Rachel stared at the screen, unsure of how to respond. She was living in luxury, or it felt like she was trapped in a cage made of gold. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Desmond was hiding something. And the more she observed, the more she realized how little she knew about the man she was pretending to be married to. One night, she decided to explore the mansion. Most of the rooms were as elegant and polished as the rest of the house. But when she reached the far wing, she discovered a door that was locked. Curiosity got the better of her, and she asked one of the staff about the next day. The woman's face tightened, and she quickly excused herself without answering. Rachel's mind raced. What was behind that door? Why was everyone so secretive? She was beginning to wonder if this arrangement was more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Rachel couldn't stop thinking about the locked room. The mansion was huge, and every room had been accessible to her except that one. Why was it off limit? One afternoon, while Desmond was out for a meeting, she decided to try again. She wandered around the mansion, feigning casual interest until she found herself in front of the door. Her fingers hesitated on the knob, but to her surprise it was slightly open. Rachel pushed it open slowly. The room inside was dimly lit, with thick curtains blocking out most of the light. Dust covered the furniture, and the air smelled musty, as though it hadn't been used in years. At the center of the room was a portrait of a woman. Her features were strikingly similar to Rachel's. Her heart skipped a beat. Who was this woman? And why did she look so much like her?